Hi, I'm Scott Grove, and I want to show you how I work with Easy Inlay's metal leaf. Easy Inlay has a variety of metal leaf products. They have an imitation gold, a copper, a variegated gold. Not sure if you can see that here. This is actually what the variegated looks like. It has sort of a color patina on it. They do that with heat when they make it. They also have a gold flake in a large quantity and sort of a sample pack in copper, silver, and gold. Adding metal leaf adds a nice shimmer to any of your craft projects. You can metal leaf just about any material, any surface. And I'm going to start with a project showing you how to just do a simple frame here. Before we get started, I want to explain the difference between metal leaf and real gold leaf. Real gold leaf is actual real gold, and the price is a lot more expensive, and it fluctuates depending on the market price. And the way you can tell the difference is when you buy the leaf, it will usually tell you what carat it is. So here's a 22 carat, and here's a 23 carat gold leaf. Also, real gold leaf is typically smaller in size. It's about 1.25 inches by 1.25 inches square, as opposed to metal leaf is usually 5.5 by 5.5. Metal leaf can be referred to as Dutch metal or composite metal or brass leaf. So there's a variety of terminologies, but just to let you know, it's not real gold. There's advantages to working with the metal leaf. One, it's thicker. You can actually handle it with your hands. You can tear it, you can cut it, you can sort of manipulate it. Just a lot easier to work with, where real gold is very difficult to handle. You typically don't handle it with your hands. It's very, very thin, a lot thinner than the metal leaf. And it just sort of falls apart when you touch it. And for this project, we're going to do just a picture frame. Just bought this at a big box craft store. I think it was Michael's or Joann's, something like that. And we're going to go ahead and gild this and show you all the steps you need to know. I'm going to be using the variegated gold. I think that has a nice little color variation to it. It's going to add a lot of interest to this frame. Easy Inlay has a really nice application starter kit. It comes with everything you need. It comes with a glue size, application brush, a mop brush, and some polishing pads. And of course, there's instructions on the back. This video will make it a lot easier. When applying this, it's important to get a very nice even coat. What helps is don't drag your brush over a sharp corner. What that's going to do is give you a little drip on the end here, as opposed to just sort of brush with that face and brush off the edge. And once I've got a nice even coat, I'll just give a couple nice even strokes. What I like to do is write down the time when I'm done putting it. So right now it's 4:51, and that'll give me an idea of how long this is taking to dry. The Mohawk sizing is a very quick size. It should take about 10 to 15 minutes depending on the temperature and the humidity, and that will then give you an open window to put the leaf on. And the amount of time it takes to get to that tack is about 15 minutes. That means you'll have about 15 minutes to put the leaf on. You can always put more size on if it gets too dry on you, but it's usually not a problem. You can certainly save the leftover varnish. Put that back and seal the lid tight. And to clean the brush, I use a little mineral spirits or paint thinner. Get the excess sizing off that. Then I take a little water with some dish soap and clean that brush that way. This will preserve your brush for the next application. And as a side note, glue size is actually a varnish. And if you know anything about varnishes, you don't want to throw away your varnish rags in a trash can or even leave them crumbled up on the floor. They can spontaneously combust. That works with all varnishes. So as a safety tip, what I like to do, I just have a bucket of water, and I just take whatever rags I've been using and I throw it in the bucket of water. It soaks up the water and let that sit for the day. I can then let them dry out or throw them away at a later date. But just be really careful with how you're storing your oily rags. Use your common sense. You want to start checking your size for tackiness 10 minutes out. And again, it depends on the temperature and the humidity. I'm working in the winter here. It's a little chilly in my shop, so I actually had to wait about 23 minutes till I felt it was ready to go. And how I do that is you take the back of your hand, if you've got a little hairy hand like I do, or a little hair, and you just lightly touch that. And it should feel tacky and not sticky. Big difference there. You don't want any material coming off on your finger. Some people actually take their finger and wipe it on the surface. I don't recommend doing that. In fact, I often will actually take a little extra varnish and brush it on a piece of wax paper or another similar material with the same porosity, so I can kind of poke at that, and that'll give me a sense of where the tackiness is coming, because I don't want to leave any fingerprints in my varnish, because that will show through the metal leaf. But in this case, so I'm touching, it's very tacky, it's not sticky, nothing's coming off of my finger, and if I slide my finger, you probably can't hear it, there's kind of your skin sort of skips along the surface, and some people say that's a squeaky sort of sound. Again, I don't recommend doing that when you're first testing. If you put your finger on there, you're gonna get a big streak in there if it's still too wet or sticky. So this is feeling really nice, and now the fun part. As I mentioned, I'm gonna take the Easy Inlay variegated gold. You can easily handle it. Really fun, and I'm just going to lay this on. I'm going to try to, use as much of the leaf as possible. So I'm going to lay it on here and just overlay it just a little bit. Oh, I should have moved it this way. Oh well. And then you take your mop brush from the application kit, and I'm just going to lightly tap this down and fold it over the edge and get all those creases out. And on this bottom edge, sort of brush that bottom edge, I can go ahead and tear this. I can simply tear that off. It'll tear right along that bottom edge, and I can use that piece for the next segment. You want to try to get it on as cleanly as you can. You want to try to get on as large pieces as possible, but if you get a little crack or a little hole, no big deal. You can take a little scrap and simply drop it on there. You can press it on with your thumb, and you're good to go. I typically like to just go for the large surface areas first, then I'll come back, I'll inspect the piece and fill any little holes and areas that I've missed. Now once you have the majority of the leaf on, I go ahead and brush the entire piece to really sort of break off any loose overlaps as best I can, and kind of embed that leaf into the size or the glue as best you can. You want to lightly brush. Don't press too hard because you could damage and scratch the surface. Next, I'm going to take the polishing cloth, fold that up kind of 4 times over, create a little sort of cushion, and I'm going to go ahead and just lightly burnish this down nice and flat into the size. There'll be some overlap areas where there'll be a little ridge. Sometimes those areas you have to kind of work back and forth to break off that excess material. It will come off, and I slowly work my way around, getting rid. And you might come across some areas like right here where I didn't get some leaf on. There'll be plenty of little bits left over. I can simply press that in with my thumb. Another technique, if you really want to sort of embed this into the surface, is I take wax paper. This way I can apply pressure to push that leaf down into the size, get it nice and flat and smooth, but I don't risk scratching the metal surface. That's another way of doing it. There'll be a point when you're going to have all these little bits all over the place, and it makes sense just to sort of put your project aside and clean up all these excess bits. You can save these for another project. That's something I'll show you do in another video. And I'll go over it one more time to try to get all those little loose pieces off, work the seams. I don't know if you can see that little seam there, there's a little overlap. If I just kind of go back and forth, kind of flapping the overlap back, and it'll finally break off nice and smooth, and you won't be able to see it. A couple tricks is if you want to clean up this back edge, you could take a razor blade and just lightly scratch that back edge, and it'll sort of clean up any overlap that's sort of stuck onto the back side. You can also use little mineral spirits on the back side. That'll clean up any extra residue that's back there. Give you a nice clean surface. You could also have taped this off with painter's tape. So there you go. So now the leaf is on. I could just leave it like this, but over time, the brass alloy will eventually start to tarnish. So what I often will do is seal this in with a clear finish. You can use shellac, acrylic finish, clear lacquer, gloss, doesn't matter what brand, it all works just fine. In this case, I'm going to use a little lacquer because it'll dry fastest. Just light coats. And I'll let that dry. And another trick, if you have a hard time getting rid of those little overlaps, those little ridges, sometimes they're just annoying, they don't break off or you don't see them. What I'll often do is after you put your first coat of finish on, it sort of freezes them in place. Then you can rub it a little more aggressively and it'll definitely break them off. And I'll put one more coat on top of that and you're good to go. Let's go ahead and frame this baby up. You think it's a good likeness? So I hope that helps. Check out Easy Inlay YouTube channel. There's a lot of other videos on there, other projects that's been leafed. And yeah, I hope it works out for you. So start looking around the house, see what objects need a little brightening up. And thanks for watching. Remember, Easy Inlay makes inlay easy. Okay, bye-bye.